Thanks everybody for joining us. We're really excited today to talk to you about brand loyalty and what it means for consumers and how it's changing from a technology standpoint as well as from a loyalty standpoint. So before we do quick intros and who does what, I want to get a raise of hands in regards to how many loyalty programs you think the average consumer is actually tied to. So if you think it's 5 or more, 5 or less, 10 or less, right? 15 or less, right? It's actually 17. Average consumer is tied to 17 different loyalty programs that ranges from travel, everything that was just mentioned, from different subscription services. So we're going to talk today a little bit about different ways that the brands on the stage here are actually working with consumers to keep them engaged, and really excited to let them all do a quick intro of who they are and what they do within their brands. Again, I'm Michael. I run the digital side of Involved Media, which is a full agency that's based in New York City as well as Canada and Australia.
Hi everyone, it's so great to be here. My name is Viviana Muci. I'm the Director for Digital Media and Strategy at Monster Energy. I oversee our international markets, so that's Canada, LATAM, Oceania, and APAC.
Hi everyone, Ashleigh Gibson here. I lead our mac and cheese business for U.S. retail, so think Velveeta Shells and Cheese, Kraft Deluxe, and Kraft mac and cheese, probably some of your favorite mac and cheese brands. I'm also the co-chair for the Black BRG at the company, so just wanted to shout that out since our women panelists for calling attention to the need to serve that way.
I love your mac and cheese. My name is Michael Kai. I lead communications, influencer marketing, and social media for 2 dating apps under the Match Group umbrella. One is Archer, which is a new dating app for gay, bisexual, and queer men that was launched last year. And the other is OkCupid, which just celebrated our 20th anniversary in January. So we're really excited because next year we can finally drink.
Good afternoon, Rob Center with the Dallas Cowboys. I lead our brand and marketing efforts, which is all things loyalty. Most simply put, it is we are trying to grow the next generation of Dallas Cowboys fans. Focused, of course, here in the U.S., but also specifically in Mexico.
Thanks, everybody. So I would love to start with really diving into how you are connecting with consumers with so much competition that's in the market, specifically Ashleigh, Vivian, CPG brands in regards to having a lot of competition, shelf life. How are you really just connecting with consumers in different ways to make sure that you're driving loyalty, with your specific brands?
Yeah, well, as you said, the beverage industry is very competitive. Back when Monster was launched, it wasn't as it is today. We see a bunch of brands coming in the energy drink space with different products, different functionality, but what we've realized at Monster is that our brand values, our DNA, the personality that we have, right? This claw represents so much, and we've built so much fandom by connecting with consumers before, and it's ever more important for us to make sure we're communicating and connecting that lifestyle to bring people into what Monster is and not really focusing so much on pushing our product, because that's something, as we were hearing before, that it's easy to switch, right? People, they can try easily another product, they want to try new things, and there's very little loyalty, to be honest, so that makes us even more focused on bringing fans and building fandom and making connections around emotion and entertainment.
I think a lot of people have grown up with Kraft mac and cheese. We talk about it as often a food that toddlers eat as a first food. Then it's maybe one of the first things you learn how to cook. Then you go off to college and you're making it for yourself. And then the cycle repeats, right? Which is it makes it really interesting to be able to work on a brand that grows up with people. I think the big challenge we have is, as we think about the U.S. consumer becoming more multicultural, the memory structures aren't the same. So for Black audiences or Latin audiences, they don't have the same kind of connection. And so we're spending a lot of time and trying to figure out the moments of connection that we can create when Black and Latin everyday consumers are finding food for themselves, where we can kind of, we call them inception points, if you will. How do we go in and influence what they're doing and how they're eating? For a long time, we've talked to moms, and mac and cheese was like this, of course, a comfort food, but really giving people permission to indulge in it, right? So it's like, don't worry about it, Mom, grab that forkful, do it during the week, it's not a big deal. Well, what we're seeing with the Gen Z consumers, like, they don't think about comfort in that way. Like, they don't think about indulgence as a bad thing. It's kind of part of your lifestyle, right? We're walking around in sweatpants, like, so being comfortable is not naughty anymore. And so we really had to rethink about the points of difference that we have. We're really reliable, we're super consistent, we're really cheesy and delicious, right? So as we start thinking about those things, and Anton mentioned like the challenges that Gen Z consumer has in terms of growing up, and they're feeling a lot of pressure and they're not sure how to an adult. We're kind of stepping in and saying, we're a reliable company. You know us. We're consistent. We're going to show up when you need us. So when you're going off to college, when you're moving the first time, when you're going for that job interview, how can we be a pleasant reminder, a touchstone of like who you are in a moment where maybe change is feels a little kind of scary and exciting, and we're trying to find those moments to show up in a new way for a generation versus being like, you got this, Mom. It's really bad. Like, hey, no, you got this person. Let us go on that ride with you. So when then you have kids, then you remember us and you start the cycle.
Love that. A lot of great synergy between the two brands could be interesting, co-branding, especially with like college students or something like that. Kraft mac and cheese.
We can boil the noodles in Monster Energy.
So speaking of audiences, kind of going a little deeper, as it relates to going really specific for target audiences and dating apps, tell us a little bit about that, Michael, and what that means, and how you try to build loyalty of reaching the right consumer and making sure that they're the right audience for you as well.
Yeah, so for us, what's different is I don't need you to choose Archer or OkCupid versus one of our competitors. Data shows that all our consumers are on multiple apps at the same time, normally within 3 to 5 apps at a time range. So we really need to make sure that you're coming to our app in general, and we're one of the ones in your mix, and then that we're keeping you there. And for us, when we're thinking about the different audiences, for those two apps alone, are very, very different. OkCupid has always said we're exclusively inclusive. It's not a way to put this up. And for us, it's about making sure that everyone, regardless of how you identify, what you look like, what type of relationship you're looking for, that you feel really welcomed and safe on our app. So it really is an app for everyone. Whereas on the other side, Archer is for a very niche audience. It's only for gay, bisexual, and queer men. So the way we're thinking about each of those audiences is about really finding ways to connect with them. For Archer, it's, when we were building that app, we were thinking about 2 words continuously came to mind: community and safe spaces. Because for queer men, that's really what we're lacking. So for us, it was about finding ways to build a community for this community, to leverage the community, to show up in those safe spaces in a really authentic way, hiring only queer-owned agencies, working with only queer-owned businesses, showing up mostly outside Pride Month, and making sure that anything that we were doing from a marketing perspective, knowing consumers are really smart today, that we're funneling all our marketing dollars into queer people, queer talent, BIPOC queer talent. And then for OkCupid, which I think we'll talk about later in this discussion as well, it's about paying really, really, really close attention to all the issues that are top of mind for that demographic, which tends to be Gen Z and millennial daters, and partnering with organizations and brands that are behind what's driving those consumers' behavior.
Rob, you also have like the kind of advantage, I would say, of consumers picking you as a brand to want to be engaged with and linked in. But I'm sure you're trying to like reach new consumers. Tell us a little bit about that and what it means from a loyalty standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be mostly on home turf here, just down the road from Dallas. So, it's interesting. In my role, that's true. Like we always rank the number one in our fan base in the NFL and total fans and all that, and that's great. It's a good starting point, but I would be remiss in my position if I wasn't concerned about, we don't control what happens on the field. And spoiler alert, having Taylor Swift winning Super Bowls brings eyeballs to me. So, I think Taylor Swift's definitely going to come up on this thing. But, at the end of the day, growing that next generation of fans, we hear all the time, like, oh, my dad or my grandpa's a huge Cowboys fan. They remember the 90s. And we love our history. That was a long time ago. What we're doing now is really a three-pronged approach, music, fashion, and gaming, and trying to find those intersections of where the younger folks who maybe have that dad or grandpa or whoever, wacky aunt, who are huge Cowboys fans, but they're just not. Maybe they're really into gaming, or maybe they've got whatever going on. And we can actually, through our built-in influencers and our players who have their own massive brands, and they've got their own massive followings. Some of them are huge gamers. Some of them are launching their own fashion brands. Like, how do we use them and entangle our brand and who we have our total ecosystem, and start to pull those folks in? And it's really incredible to see, because it really truly does work. Where people come in, they're like, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I sent my kid to your youth flag camp. Man, an amazing time. And while we were on the campus, we grabbed dinner at that new restaurant that just opened, and we had a phenomenal time. So you can start to see those little boxes that are off the field. We have 8-9 home games a year. That's not very much time that the main bread and butter product is doing its job. So we've got to fill the rest of that.
The activation and experiential stuff comes really natural, I think, for your brand. Way you can do that. And I know we were talking a little bit earlier and how it does for Monster as well. Tell us a little bit about some of your success on campaigns and bringing things out of market for activation and what you're doing.
So obviously the brand is at a different stage when it comes to the U.S. and some of our international markets. And then when we compare those international markets, it gets even more complex, because we have markets like Mexico, Brazil, that we're leading the category. They're really, they're fast-paced markets, but we've been there for less than 10 years. And then when you compare that to markets like Japan, we've been there for almost 16, 17 years. And it's kind of more mature as a brand. I know probably not compared to mac and cheese, but yes. So it's important for us to just understand that our approach to how we want to connect with consumers in these different markets is now always digital first. So we know that the best way for us to build that loyalty and to bring new energy drinkers into the category is by connecting with Gen Z and really understanding what are the shared passions that they have with our brand, being it MMA, skate, surf, skiing, obviously depending on each market, and not only making sure that we're activating it, which we're great at, but also bringing all that experience into digital and showing them that we're there supporting the local ambassadors, that we're supporting the local events, that we're being the best partners for the skate events that are occurring, not only the big events, but also grassroots, and then putting that all into our digital platforms and digital media with very exciting content that's proven to be really a success for us to gain rapid awareness among these markets.
It's a great example, and I love the digital piece of it and being able to type creative in there. So we'd love to see if anybody has anything to share on how you found success with actually, making those messages connect from a digital data standpoint to putting your message actually in market.
So no examples of wins yet, because we're actively doing this. But I think what you're hearing from folks is really about like showing up where Gen Z is, and you have to show up in a way that resonates with them in terms of the content that you're creating, right? So just had a great session with JL's, our agency partner, last week, and typically on this type of business, you're looking at a lot of TV buy. It's very linear. It's really expensive, right? And so I was really happy, two prongs, right? Like, happy that the media team came back and said, nope, we're bifurcating our budget. 50% is going to households with kids. The other 50% is actually going to go to your younger, multicultural audience. And I know that sounds like, yeah, duh, you should do it. has not been done in the last 10 years on this business. So we've been talking about attacking this new younger consumer for a long time. And then right after that, was really happy to see that JL was putting together a pitch that said, yeah, okay, we need to have this film asset. But really, what we're really excited about is like thinking about how do we generate content with Gen Z front and center and actually have them tell us what that, not to spoil the creative, but like what KMC feels like to them, right? And put them front and center, make it lo-fi, put it in the places you guys know where they are, right? All the social platforms, etc. And I was like, okay, we're starting to actually look and feel different than the plan on a page from last year, which is really exciting. So hopefully when you guys start seeing our content in the next couple months, you're like, okay, that's what Ashleigh was talking about. Like they're actually doing it versus just talking about it.
One great example for OkCupid is of a win that we had a while back, actually, was we were looking at the data, and one thing I mentioned earlier is that we really do care about every single community on our app, and we do a lot for the LGBTQ plus community, all the way back to 2004, which is the year we launched. And one thing that we really wanted to do was show up for the community around the fight for marriage equality years ago. And we decided to partner with the ACLU, so going back to that point about partnering with organizations at the front lines and doing the work for the causes that you're championing and donating to said organizations, but also influencing the product. And we launched our first ever badge with them, Profile Badge, which signals to daters right on your profile what's really important to you. And that was our hashtag Right to Love badge in partnership with the ACLU. And we saw at launch the highest growth in female registrations, which for us is a win, knowing that our biggest demographic are heterosexual couples. And to be quite honest, if women are coming to your app, men are going to follow. So that was a really big win for us. And then post-launch, we actually started to notice spikes in registrations across all demographics, regardless of your gender and identity. So it was just a quick way for us to engage with the community and show up.
Rob, earlier you gave a little bit of a tease to Taylor Swift. Do you all, as a brand, see that as a win to getting more consumers, I assume, from a different demographic? Tell us what your thoughts are on that.
Short answer is yes. But no, I have a focus group in my house. And my wife is not a fan of football, and I have a 6-year-old who's a huge Taylor Swift fan, and both of them were locked in. So I was like, clearly it's working. No, I think I get asked a lot, like, what do you think about Taylor Swift? Is this good for football? And I think absolutely. It's no doubt bringing in a totally new audience. It's creating new moments across every touch point. I can't imagine working and I know some of those folks in the Chiefs marketing team, like they have to be ready for every moment because Taylor shows up, says something, whatever. Like they, of course, are benefiting the most, but the sport on the whole is benefiting. We ourselves have seen within our merchandise business, it's a huge arm for us. Specifically, our youth girls apparel blew up this year. And we definitely, sure, there's probably a few things that contribute to that, but absolutely did. Are there 8-year-olds and whatnot who are coming in and want that pink jersey or that pink shirt? It's like, yes, it is. So, yeah, we love it. We support them, the Chiefs, and hope that she can keep that running for a long time. But, yeah, the goal, or I should say the kicker to that, though, is keeping them around. Because eventually, when Kelsey retires, what's going to happen is going to happen. And how do you then keep that audience there? That's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, and keeping the audience engaged, obviously, is going to be interesting to see over a little bit of time as we go into the next season. Ashleigh, keeping audiences engaged, obviously they're going to pick it up off the shelf if they love it. What about retaining new ones? How does that tie to kind of your media planning and advertising, like paid advertising? You mentioned a little bit about TV, that you do quite a bit in that space, but what about other channels? Where are you also activating?
We're trying to get into the experiential game, so if you're an agency partner and want to sell your wares, find me. Just don't attack me all at once. So that's really important. I know I threw it out there, right? Maybe I'll get someone really good. So then, obviously, we're spending a lot of money on social too. I did want to plug though. we did not talk about this, so sorry for going off script, but like keeping people in the portfolio for us is really about product availability. So like product needs to be in the right spaces, in the right formats. So we are making a very big push around like what the next generation of convenience looks like. So I'm sure you guys have had interactions with our mac and cheese cups, but like what happens beyond that when you guys need less than something ready in less than 5 minutes. But then it's also like when you're thinking about like product taste and texture and trying to be on the forefront of what that looks like for consumers again as we think about like a more multicultural audience, right? So obviously we've been making, got to go to the plant last week. We've been making mac and cheese at this plant for over 75 years, which is incredible. But I'm like, hey guys, what can we do to get like this new flavor, this new shape on the line, and how's it going to run efficiently? And we're really excited about that. So new products coming out this year on the business, but certainly in the years in the future, like partnering with some really awesome thought leaders in the space, chip brands, etc., trying to do co-merch and partnerships to bring new flavor and life to the product is really important in addition to the media, right? Because then I have to go tell them that this thing exists on the platforms that really matter to them.
Thank you. And I know that with Monster, you're kind of a little bit of the opposite. You're more laid back with the brand from what we were talking about. Tell us a little bit about that and how you use ambassadors and like a media standpoint.
So I mean, I think you know that Monster, we don't do very flashy campaigns, right? We really want to show up in a very authentic and organic way, and we really leverage our, as I said before, our partnerships and our ambassadors. So how we do it, especially when, again, not only in the U.S. but in our international markets, is truly identify how our ambassadors are being seen within the communities, and how they can bring us not only, of course, the medals and podiums, but seeing them also as content creators and how they can help us create cool content where we can showcase in a very authentic way our innovations, our new flavors, and use that to really, use that content to then push it to reach new audiences that we have not tapped into before through, as we know, like Spark Ads, for example, on TikTok. So really having them being the face of the brand, and it's working very well for us, especially when we partner with locally relevant ambassadors like Raisa Leal in Brazil. She's like the #1 skater, and we've noticed that she's helping us bring women into the category, but not only in Brazil, because we use a lot of her content in Japan, which also has a huge skating community, and in Canada, and that content also works for us. And when we see the data, we see that it helps us bring more female into the brand, and that's a huge opportunity for Monster. So really understanding how we can use our ambassadors beyond just podium winners.
Awesome. I know that OkCupid had some big releases, let's say, like January, February, for AI specifically in regards to dating. So love to tell us a little bit about that and kind of what you guys got out of it, what you're thinking, how it ties to loyalty, with the individuals who are using the apps.
Has anyone ever heard of AI or ChatGPT? A little bit. It's new. So for us, all dating apps have been using AI for years. We use it in safety and moderation. But early last year, there was just a ton of conversations around ChatGPT. And looking at the year ahead, which is 2023 for OkCupid, my biggest challenge was how do I tell really impactful stories on a minimal marketing budget with no product innovation. And I couldn't say that publicly at the time, but we were busy building Archer, which nobody knew about. So for us, we couldn't do anything in the product, and it's an extremely crowded category. I can name dozens of dating apps. There's likely hundreds that are actively used. Some reports say there's thousands. So for us, it's finding ways to creatively tell a story that drives back to our core product differentiator, which reminds people in a subtle way why we're here and how we're different. And for us, it's our in-app matching questions. That's how we connect people all around the world who we feel are most compatible based on how they're responding to the questions. And we get really tailored with our questions as well. There's tailored questions in over 30 markets around the world because we know that what you're asking on a dating app in New York or LA is very different than what's going to be top of mind for you in London, Tel Aviv, Mumbai, Tokyo. And then even for different communities, queer people see different questions that straight people don't. Gay people see questions that lesbians don't. And with these conversations about ChatGPT, I thought, how do we find a way to make this about ourselves? We're so self-centered. We really want to find ways to penetrate these viral conversations, and we actually use ChatGPT to ask our questions for us, because that takes one thing off my plate, so it's a win-win. And ChatGPT wrote a whole series of matching questions for us. We added it to the app. No pay went behind this. We told a really organic PR story. It went viral for us as a brand, and what we saw from our users was really interesting. So we announced this in mid-February last year, and we saw a skyrocket in activity engagement on our app. Logins hit the highest level that they've had since November the year prior. And anyone who's outside of the dating app space, we do have our own Super Bowl. And our Super Bowl happens on the first Sunday of the year, which is called Dating Sunday or Single Sunday. It's after everyone gets through the new year and they're like, I don't want to do that alone again. So they're downloading dating apps, and out of the entire year, that's our busiest day. This one story, this one test for us blew that day out of the water. It was a really fun win for us, and now we've been adding in ChatGPT generated questions pretty much every single month. And those first 9 have been answered over 3.5 million times so far. So really popular category and a lot of data to leverage.
Awesome. I know we were allowed to go a little over short hour Q&A. Oh, wow. Yes, sir.
You can sit here.
Great session. This question for you, Michael.
You may have
So,
a few minutes.
you talked about
Yeah.
Charles from Fifth. Great session. So, Michael, this question is for you. You talked about the prioritization for your Archer label and working with queer-owned and queer-led agencies, right? And we've been fortunate enough to be doing some work with your Black dating match groups, Black dating app, which is BLK. And I've been really impressed by their commitment to making sure they match mission with the types of partners that they're working with. So I'm curious if you can speak to really quickly what you found in terms of the power and impact of having connected partners, whether that be agency partners, some of the organizations that you're partnering with, and how that's amplified the message that you guys are trying to get out as a brand.
Yeah, it's really important for us because I'm sure there's so many underrepresented demographics are going to feel the same way, but for queer people, we read through the BS during Pride Month every single year. So for us, for me at least, it was really important to reinvest in our community. And what I love about Archer, and it's mirrored across BLK or other apps, we have people at the table who should be at the table. Head of marketing for Archer as a gay man, that's me, it's not right. Head of product as a gay man, head of data science as a gay man. So that was really important to us. But one thing I wanted to drill down about bringing the right people into the conversation is we work with independent nonprofits, we donate to them, they have a seat at our table, they weigh in on all our product messaging, all our marketing. But for Archer, specifically, what we did was built a group of community advocates, and I think about the term legal so I can use. And our group of community advocates are gay, bisexual, and queer men in all our key markets, who we actually brought into our office and said, this is what we're planning to launch. What do you think about it? Does it solve a pain point you have from the existing apps already out there? What brands would you want us to partner with? So we got really specific with how we're catering and showing up for this community. And every single month on the Archer app, we have content from an expert related to mental, physical, and sexual health, who has content live on our app, which has been mirrored on our social, pushed out via CRM. And it's all about being a resource for our community because we know there's a lot of questions we have that are never going to be talked about in schools. So we really take it seriously about how we're showing up and not just helping them find out.
Also, 2 more questions, what I was told. Yes, here in the front.
Joan Melchesky, Director of Brand and Marketing, Green Bay Packers.
Let's go.
Just wondering what your free agency situation looks like.
Our draft list.
Right. My question is, what keeps you all up at night, and what's on the roadmap to fix it?
Some of the things I already hit on, really just that the leaky bucket of fandom and the younger generation not having that, we don't like to use the term America's team. We love when the media uses it, but that notion, how does that carry on? How does that go down to the next generation? So that's where the cultural elements of the gaming, fashion, music spaces, we think we can bring those folks in. Also, we are very aware, and I don't know if you guys have seen this as much of the Packers, we're very aware that people are becoming fans of multiple teams. And we have to be okay with that. And I think that's just the way we all move about the country now. Not everyone, the way it used to be, where you're just born for each day, they become a fan of that team, and that's how it is. And then you have kids. The amount of fans that we see, especially in Dallas, that have moved from California, in Southern California in particular, we've got all these groups coming in that don't have that passion and that connection like so many people who grew up in it. And creating those ways to pull them in, that again are not necessarily going to a game on Sunday. Like we know we have some stats on it, but it's like the vast majority of Cowboys fans will never step into AT&T Stadium. Yeah, and it's got to be the same at Lambeau Field. So what do we do that makes us relevant, that connects us with them? But yeah, I mean, what keeps me up at night is just that, looking up in 10 years and going, oh man, wow, we really fell down, we fell back.
One thing that's my nightmare is used to be people meeting in person. Scary. Now it's people meeting on social media. So the way we thought about Archer is adopting a lot of the features that consumers are really used to from Instagram and TikTok and building a social-first dating app. So it has all the features that gay users are used to, but it also has a following feature and a social feed and tools that let them create content on the app, and really building an app that's a blend of a dating app and a social app.
I think we have one more question.
Who's gonna answer what keeps me up at night? It's Monster.
Hi, Dan, formerly of Tinder, Activision Blizzard, Ford, and Reebok, and now a consultant. Ashleigh and Michael specifically. Michael, you talked about being on the front lines for audiences to build loyalty. Both of you are part of big parent company, though, so I wondered if you could give advice to brand marketers in the room on how do you get down to doing the really meaningful things that you can do for especially underrepresented audiences, but how do you do it by selling into a very large, complex parent company?
It's my favorite part of the job. So they were talking about strengths earlier. Number 2 of my strengths is competition, and so I kind of go into the job every day and say, like, how does my brand be the thought leader within the organization to set the example of what's right? And so this kind of connects to your, like, what keeps me up at night. I am one of the most tenured people of color at the company, most senior in terms of driving revenue. And so when I'm thinking about being on the front lines of attracting the next generation of consumers that don't look like most of the people in my organization, that's what keeps me up at night. Like, if I don't set the standard and the example of, like, marketing to Black people, marketing to Latinx people is important to the trajectory of this business and where we're trying to go, and we don't start putting points on the board, win on the board for my brand, but for the company, then we're going to be behind, right? And so I feel that pressure, but it's fun, right? So some of my partners that are here in the room and that we work together, it's always like, how do we go first? How do I find that technology that's going to lock in with Gen Z and it's more multicultural than anyone else? Let me be the first one to do it and set the tone and the example for the organization. And I've been there now a decade. It's worked out. So that's how I approach it.
I think really quickly for me, it's what I find really lucky about working at OkCupid is how new we are. I know we just said 20 years. Our marketing team was first formed in 2017. We survived over a decade off of word of mouth. So everything we're doing now feels really creative, and we're testing a lot, and we're learning, and we're scrappy, and we have to make the most noise possible, and that's by doing things that other people haven't done. It's the reason I came to this brand. When I first got asked to interview, I did not know what OkCupid was. I met my partner on Tinder 10 years ago, so I didn't test all the dating apps. But when I did my research and I learned that OkCupid has been working with ACLU and Planned Parenthood, I fell in love with the brand, and also meeting the leadership. I knew there was an appetite to just do epic shit that's going to impact people's lives. Example, really fast, started in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was at the highest, and we saw Black people murdered by police. We had a conversation during the weekend, and we said, how can we make an impact right now? And what can we do? And we went out with a statement like everyone did, but we immediately started talking to our employees and asked, what organization should we be donating to that you love? We started donating to ACLU and NAACP and Black Girls Code and Fair Fight Action. And we decided we need to help our users have really uncomfortable, awkward conversations about race. And we started adding in questions to our app about racial justice and how to show up for this issue. And we decided to launch a Black Lives Matter badge. These badges take 3 months of planning between marketing and product. We had this idea on a Tuesday afternoon. They shut down the entire company. And in 72 hours, the product feature was out there, it launched, and the marketing launch was live. So I think, in short, it's by working with people who are willing to do the work, because we're all willing to.
Thank you guys for being here. I know there's some other questions. These guys are nice, so find them after and ask your questions. Thank you.